Persona, directed by Ingmar Bergman, is one of those arthouse movies that is more enjoyable to analyze than it is to watch. The film follows Sister Alma, the lovely as ever Bibi Andersson, a young nurse who is assigned to treat a famous actress named Elisabeth Vogler, Liv Ullmann, who suddenly became mute on the stage. The two women move into a cozy summer home by the sea, where Elisabeth shows signs of progress. But their close relationship soon sours, and Alma, not Elisabeth, turns out to be the mentally damaged one who needs help. Persona places a strong emphasis on power dynamics reversing themselves. Alma is worried that her actions don't fit with her devout religious beliefs, as we see in a story she tells of a ménage à quatre she had on the beach with another woman and two underage boys. In sharing these past events with Elisabeth, Alma initially feels better to have gotten them off her chest, but they end up amplifying her insecurities and making her more unstable. Alma instantly identifies Elisabeth as a strong-willed woman back at the hospital. During their stay at the summer house, Elisabeth remains as calm, silent, and impenetrable as ever, but Alma becomes petulant, forceful, and even cruel. The cause of Elisabeth's mutism is hinted at and speculated upon, but never outright confirmed. Given her distressed reaction to news reports of the Vietnam War and the immolating death of a South Vietnamese monk, it's possible that Elisabeth became mute out of disillusionment or as a form of protest against a harsh, violent world. It is also heavily implied by Alma's accusatory monologue in the climax, and by Elisabeth tearing up a photo of her son, that she became mute out of an inability to cope with raising a child that she never wanted and now despises. This summer home is a retreat for her to relax and get away from it all, so Elisabeth's continued mutism may be an effort to defy and control Alma. Acting as a soundboard for Alma's insecurities, Elisabeth invites Alma to trust and confide in her like a sister, but does not share any secrets or information about herself in return. As someone who can't or won't talk and can only listen, Elisabeth has an unexpected advantage. Throughout the film, we can sense Elisabeth silently judging Alma, and she psychoanalyzes her, pointing out Alma's clash between ideal and action in a letter far more effectively than Alma could analyze her, at least until the very end. Alma regards Elisabeth's inability or refusal to talk as obstinance and disobedience, and when she finds out that Elisabeth has been studying her, she angrily punishes her, but then tearfully begs for her forgiveness. Emotionally confused, Alma has fallen in love with Elisabeth, but also comes to hate her in a passive-aggressive way, and she is increasingly frustrated by the fact that she cannot understand Elisabeth, let alone treat or change her. Elisabeth, on the other hand, uses her enigmatic demeanor and mutism to exert strong control over Alma, gaining her trust, playing her emotions like a flute, and drawing out her worst tendencies. The power relationship of nurse and patient is sometimes startlingly reversed in Persona, with Elisabeth the patient wielding the real control. There is also the possibility that Alma and Elisabeth are the same person. After all, they both have baby-related experiences that they are deeply ashamed of, they are hardly ever shown together with another person, and in the only time they are shown together with someone else, Elisabeth is unacknowledged in the background, and Alma greets and reacts to Mr. Vogler as if she were Elisabeth. Also, the way Elisabeth drifts gracefully around the house and listens attentively to Alma casts the impression of an imaginary friend. Could Elisabeth be a hallucination of Alma, or Alma a hallucination of Elisabeth, as a way of addressing their guilt? The opening is also kinda interesting, showing a montage of disturbing imagery and a young boy waking up in bed. It almost seems to portray the movie becoming self-aware, as the boy inspects the huge projected face, which I took to symbolize the viewer. All of this is very intriguing to consider. However, unlike Wild Strawberries, which I like, and The Seventh Seal, which I love, I don't actually like Persona. Persona is very tedious and uneventful for long stretches, and aside from the theme of power dynamics reversing themselves, there is little sense of the narrative building to anything. As such, the film lacks tension and feels rather aimless, especially since there is barely any kind of resolution. It's also difficult to care about Alma or Elizabeth, as the film relies far too heavily on telling their stories rather than showing them, and develops them far more as puzzles than as well-defined human beings. Therefore, Persona is surprisingly unengaging for what should be an intimate personal drama. The cinematography is excellent, and the performances are solid, especially from Bibi Andersson, whose unhinged menace really takes you off guard, but even so, Persona is a film that I don't think I'll ever watch again. And of course, I couldn't help but notice how much this film influenced David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, in which case the best thing to do would probably be to neuter the film before it spreads any further. Ingmar Bergman's Persona earns 3 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching. Cheers.